I predicted that Niger was a candidate for a coup, was a candidate for such a systemic coup. And I think I'm a prophet. It has happened. Let me tell you, Senegal is a new candidate. Mark it on the wall. If Macky Sall doesn't stop what is happening, and if ECOWAS doesn't take steps to talk to Macky Sall.
Between August 2020 and now, the African region has been threatened by a number of military takeovers. Of course, there have been other failed attempts in places like the Gambia and Guinea-Bissau. Between that period as well, the ECOWAS has been raining down on these countries that have had these military takeovers. However, none of these have stopped ambitious soldiers from attempting to do even more damage in terms of coups. We're looking at the situation where Ghana is placed amongst these countries, especially within the West African region. Today on the Lowdown, we look at the state of Ghana's security when it comes to coups. My guest is a very usual face you see around, who speaks a lot on security issues. Dr. Vladimir Antwi-Danso is the Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. My name is Atisu. Welcome. I'm sitting in for your regular host, Daniel Odro. Doc, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to first ask, Ghana as a country, are we safe when it comes to security with all that's happening within the sub-region?
In the interim, I would say yes, in the sense that the ingredients for coup are not yet rife in Ghana. I think the military is a disciplined organization in Ghana. Our democratic dispensation has given a certain air around us, which make it impossible for ambitious soldiers to overrun the government. But let me sound a note of caution. When waters are calm, it doesn't mean that the current is not there flowing.
Okay.
Anything can happen at any time. And let me educate our viewers and listeners also on one thing. The current spate of coups we see in West Africa are unlike those coups we found earlier on. Ghana has had about 10 coups since the 60s. And those coups were conspiratorial coups. Conspiracy. The Rawlings coups, the Achampon coups and whatnot. You just find friends who were in your platoon mates and your intake mates, and say, let's make a coup. So you would see that in the 60s and 70s, even up to the 80s, you would realize that in Africa, the coups were made by junior ranks and NCOs, non-commissioned officers. Today, the coups you mentioned are made by generals. So there is a difference. Why are the generals now interested in making the coups?
Why is that?
Actually, I'm going to tell you. In the earlier coups, the junior officers just felt that the generals are in bed with the government.
Okay.
And therefore, they take it upon themselves. And it spoils the esprit de corps. What happens is that the Rawlings, a flight lieutenant, captain, makes a coup. And the generals will have to salute such a thing. I mean, it's like such a person. And it's like it spoils the military. The military is spoiled. And look, but for the recent things that we have done in the military, those problems that Rawlings created, for example, would have been a big problem for the military. But now the hierarchy is there. Current coups that are being made by the generals are what I call systemic coups, as against conspiratorial coups.
Which used to happen in the past.
The conspiratorial coups used to happen in the past.
Okay.
Today's coups are coups where the generality of the military setup thinks that they should save the state from something, save the state from implosion. You know, they are not conspiratorial coups. A state like Mali was going to have a civil war completely. There was going to be implosion. The country was going to be divided. The Tuaregs wanted the northern part of Mali against the south and kind of thing. such a situation is like there would have been no Mali today if the military hadn't struck. And they struck as a unit, as an arm of government, or let me call it an institution which was built or is built to save the state in terms of crisis. Okay. And they did. So was Guinea. So was Burkina Faso. You know, at that point, many of your colleagues who interviewed me, I predicted that Niger was a candidate for a coup, was a candidate for such a systemic coup. And I think I'm a prophet. It has happened. Let me tell you, Senegal is a new candidate. Mark it on the wall. If Macky Sall doesn't stop what is happening, and if ECOWAS doesn't take steps to talk to Macky Sall. So the coups we are having are unlike the coups we saw in the 60s and 70s. Again, those conspiratorial coups were supported strongly by the patrons of the Cold War. So it's either Russia, which is under it. Mostly it was the West, America, CIA, sponsoring such coups. Today, these coups are not sponsored. They are indigenous coups. They are coups from within, from Africans themselves, not supported by, say, Russia or France or that kind of thing. The leaders of the military themselves feel that we must save our state. You know, so these are the differences of the coups that we are talking about. Okay. Ghana is safe from those coups because there is not a systemic hiccup. There is no earthquake, no tremors that will trigger the military from taking over from the government. Now,
you spoke about ingredients, which you say we are not necessarily experiencing. But many of these countries, and there's this thought, school of thoughts that because they're happening within the Francophone or French-speaking countries, is that something that, like you've mentioned now, Senegal is what you are actually mentioning now, that could possibly be another country to look out for? Is that something we should even buy into?
Well, we should one way or the other, because there is a serious anti-French kind of feeling within Africa, within the French-speaking countries. Okay. There is a huge sentiment against France, colonization and neo-colonization. And people have spoken against France for a long time, because even though there is decolonization, France still holds on to their colonies as if they were just puppets. You know, the French-speaking countries in Africa, though are independent, still have to keep about 85% of their foreign reserves in French banks. And they pay tax on those reserves. My own money that I keep in France, I have to pay tax on it, for they keeping it for me. Then again, they have to trade with France first and foremost before they trade with any other country. Any of the things they want to buy, they have to look at France first. It's like they have no freedom, kind of, you know. And so that anti-French feeling in the Francophone countries, I think is having an effect, a domino effect. The hatred from Mali is sending signals elsewhere. And the French people are also unable to accept that, look, Africa is changing. Come to think of it, that when the French were ousted from Mali, Niger accepted the troops to be sent, and obviously it will bring about some kind of anger. Yes. You know, so yes, one of the things that is making France get hated in Africa is because of the way they are handling their former colonies.
Now Ghana is situated at a place where we're surrounded by the French-speaking countries. We are not at a threat, as you say. But what could be the potential risks that a country like ours, which is a peaceful one, could have from all of these?
Well, risks are all over. Risks can come from within without looking at the French-speaking countries. If, you see, the biggest problem that we are having within this coup mentality or whatever it is the question of democracy and whether we have democracy at all, you know. And so anywhere democracy hiccups, there is the possibility of a coup. So what we must guard against is that we must be very sure that our democracy does not hiccup. When I talk about hiccup, people are always believing in the ballot as a sign of democracy. Oh, we go to the ballot every 4 years. So wait until the 4th year, then you can change the government. So the behavior of ECOWAS answers this question, that they believe that once a person has been voted, We must wait until the next ballot. I have always said, and I want to reiterate it, I will mention it 1 billion times. The ballot does not stop the bullet. The ballot does not stop the bullet. If we think democracy is the ballot, and in between the ballots, any head of state can behave any way he wants, we should be very careful. That is where democracy hiccups, in between ballots. And that is where the bullet can set in at any time. So we must guard against that. The greatest risk to democracy is when after the ballot, then we go to sleep. Institutions of state are captured by the state, what we call state capture. Institutions of state are belted under the hypnosis of the incumbent government, that everything is done in the name of the state, but then the state is not there because people are not involved. Accountability is not there, participation is not there, and just wait, let me do whatever I want until the next ballot. This can bring a coup, whether it is French speaking or English speaking. So we are only safe because there is a semblance of, yes, the ballot to the next ballot. There is also a semblance of participation because of the way we do things. There's a semblance of institutional presence. The institutions of state are working in Ghana. These are some of the things that is saving Ghana and making Ghana safe from coups. But there are several other things we need to watch out. Incessant feuds, that is tribal feuds and wars around us. We should be very careful about that. And again, ungoverned spaces, spaces where government is not felt. You know, there's no government.
Okay.
Dollar power is one such place. Boku and other areas where there are internecine feuds, I fear that as insecurity for the state rather than coups. Because the Boku situation, for example, can invite terrorists.
Okay.
In fact, Mali started off this way with internecine feuds among the tribes. Jenim was formed, and they invited Al-Qaeda. Then later on, other groups also invited ISIS, and they have formed what is called ISWAP in West Africa. That's ISIS in West African province. So if we don't take care, one of the Boku factions can invite any of the jihadists to come and help them.
And that could be that just blow out of...
Exactly. Exactly. I'm more afraid about these than a coup in Ghana.
Wow. Now, you've often spoken about even the approach of ECOWAS,
Yes.
especially with the recent coup in Niger.
Yes. Yes.
Now, what's the thing that ECOWAS is doing now that is not right, and what would you think ECOWAS should actually be doing?
When a thing has happened, you must do a diagnosis. When you go to the hospital and you say you've got a cut on your foot, they know you are saying you have a cut, but they will still do their diagnosis.
So you think ECOWAS is not doing that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They just are following what they have just put down on paper. Protocol for denying any other person who come unconstitutionally. But are they even working towards that in an equal keel? Ouattara changed the constitution and had a third term. Is that not a coup? What did ECOWAS say? And why is it that they have a different measurement for Mali, a different one from Guinea, a different one for Burkina Faso? And with this one, all of a sudden, 1 week we are coming. You see, in international relations, and especially in security matters, when you threaten and you don't fulfill, you lose credibility. And you grow the opponent very seriously. Niger has grown stronger, and the three earlier coup makers have grown even higher. 1 week, which general told them that within 1 week he would mobilize troops and go to faraway Niger to go and fight? I mean, which general on this earth? Where is this written? What is the history of general mobilization within 1 week? A huge country like Russia took months to mobilize on the borders of Ukraine before they entered. And as far as I'm concerned, the theory is clear and the practice is clear. To mobilize from a multilateral organization for intervention takes not less than 6 months. UN has never moved before within 3 months, 4 months. It takes 6 months because you need the troop contributing countries to pledge troops. Côte d'Ivoire said they will give 1 platoon. 1 platoon I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous if you know what war means. Niger has about 20,000 troops. You need 3 times the number of troops your opponent has to be able to overrun their military. So we would need 60,000 troops. Meanwhile, Libya, Algeria, Burkina, Mali, and Guinea have all pledged platoons to Niger.
Doc, let me just hold you right there. We're already talking about soldiers that will be going to places like Niger and all that. There's also the conversation about Ghana in there. But when we return from this short break, we'll just continue with that conversation. We are still here with Dr. Vladimir Antwi-Danso, so we'll be back shortly.
I want you so bad, Alpha Cracker. I want you. I wanna say yes, I can't resist. I want you. Ooh, I want you, Alpha Cracker. I want you so bad, Alpha Cracker.
Have a goodness rich in milk and butter, in Alpha Cracker, yummy and deliciously crunchy.
But I can't resist you.
Alpha Crackers, simply irresistible.
This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. Still here on the Lowdown here on GhanaWeb TV with Dr. Vladimir Antwi-Danso. Doc, if ECOWAS eventually becomes successful, enters Niger, what would they be doing there?
That's $1 million question. What will it be doing there? In the first place, I doubt if ECOWAS has what it takes to go to Niger. I doubt if they would go. And if they do right now, the consequences will be very dire. They're going to fight a war in the terrain which they are unfamiliar with, number one. Number two, they're going to bring a kind of civil war within Niger. Number three, the point is they want to restore, so-called, quoting them, democracy. Are they going to take another kind of democracy from here to go and give to the Nigerian people? Democracy is not imported. It is the people within the country that bring about their democracy. One journalist from the Netherlands came and asked me, the Bazoum was democratically elected.
Yes.
So why would the soldiers overthrow him? And I said, if he's democratically elected, you don't need an outside force to go and bring back democracy. The people who voted him should be able to bring back their democracy. So you don't bake democracy from some oven outside and go and give it to a people. If ECOWAS goes in, I tell you, they are going to light a fire which will burn the whole of West Africa. So I don't think they should go in, and I don't think they would go in. What would they be going there? Supposing they went there right now and they fought and they got Bazoum back to power, would there be an occupational force, and who will pay to stay, ECOWAS occupational force, to stay to guide and guard that democracy? We've got to be very careful about what we say we want to do. They are going, because there are several other African countries, West African countries, that are candidates for coup anyway. So if they did that over there in Niger, the consequences will be that there will be more other coups. And will they have the wherewithal to be going to every country to restore democracy? That's another point. I've always asked another question. Supposing this thing happened in Nigeria, are you thinking about such a situation?
With their military force.
With their military force and with the country, the
terrain and all that.
The vastness of the country. Would we necessarily always say that we will be going to Nigeria to restore democracy? So we shouldn't bite more than we can chew. So
Doc, what should ECOWAS actually be doing now?
As I said,
you mentioned earlier, of course,
every coup is a terrific jolt to the socio-economic and socio-political order. Things have changed. So go in and negotiate for normalcy. The end game should be that you know what you want. So go in and negotiate, because there is a new leadership. They say it's unconstitutional. They have sworn themselves in. It becomes constitutional. Negotiate.
Okay.
The people say, the coup leaders say they won't listen. It is because of the first threats that we gave them. Why did Sanusi go there and they accepted Sanusi? Abdul Salam went there some few days back and they accepted him. And they told him that they want to be there for 3 years. It means they themselves have a trajectory.
Yeah.
They know what they want. Go there with your bargaining chips and say, no, the 3 years might be too long and let's do it this way. We'll achieve the same thing. It's like dialogue. Have we forgotten about diplomacy? After all, we built ECOWAS because we want to jaw and put our countries together. But if one has gone astray and you want to threaten, you are trying to force an implosion of ECOWAS. ECOWAS will implode. People will just move away from ECOWAS. 4 countries are now out of ECOWAS, suspended, isn't it? 3 other countries are supporting them. So half of ECOWAS is gone. And you go for war again, ECOWAS against ECOWAS. Next year, we'll have no ECOWAS. Is that what we want?
Now, there's a silently growing outrage amongst the Ghanaian populace with this conversation about sending Ghanaian troops, which we've not had maybe a very definite conversation about or anyone necessarily saying that. But in the instance, could Ghana be sending troops to join the ECOWAS?
I don't think Ghana on its own would say, as for me, I'm sending troops. I don't think I see those signals from the government or from the military hierarchy. I strongly suspect that Ghana, one of the biggest pillars of our foreign policy is multilateralism.
Okay.
And Ghana, as a member of this multilateral organization called ECOWAS, would want to go with ECOWAS. Left to Ghana alone, I don't think that would be the line of action they would take. So they want to go with ECOWAS because ECOWAS says so, and because it is we have a protocol that says so. So I won't fault Ghana if Ghana goes with ECOWAS, but I'll fault the whole of ECOWAS rather for taking such a step.
Now, a lot of these coups, like we're talking about, have been based on the tenures or the operations of leaders in these countries. Like you mentioned, the systemic and the conspiratory things. I am wondering, should the West African region or even Africa as a whole be really looking at the tenure for presidents, perhaps?
I don't think I subscribe to this kind of regimentation. Each country has a way of its own constitutional order. I don't care how long a president stays, provided it is constitutional. Why are we forcing ourselves to go 4 year, 5 year, 3 year, 7 year, and changing them? I mean, we must brew our democracy in the ports of Africa. If, for example, an Omahini, that's our tradition,
yes,
stays until he dies on the throne, but there are checks and balances. A Santist system has been unique and stable, very, very stable. If that is what we want, why don't we do it? Who says that the 4 year period that a president should stay is more democratic than a Santini who stays until he dies? Once that is what the constitutional order says, I have no quarrel about that. So ECOWAS or AU does not have any say in trying to decide for countries how long they should stay. What they should decide is that everything must be constitutional. Everything must be democratic. And I am for that. So, yes, the tenure of office is very, very important. Macky Sall tried to change the constitution. In Togo, we had it. Benin, we have had it. In Mali, we have had it. In several places, that is what happens. And just Ouattara did it. And we said nothing. And when there was a coup in Mali, ironically, it was Ouattara we sent to go and talk to the coup makers. Come to think of it, a civilian makes a coup and you don't say anything. So the feeling among people are discussing. So it's like you are trying to defend the club of civilians. When the civilian is ruling, let's defend him. He does no wrong. When the coup maker comes, he is wrong. I don't think that is also proper.
I've often heard people say that democracy is not for Africa. Do you agree?
That's wrong. In the first place, what is democracy? You define democracy within the context of your socio-historical, socio-economic, socio-cultural trajectory. Where are you coming from? If in our democracy, like I'm saying, what is democracy? American democracy is not the same as British democracy.
Okay.
It's not the same as Indian democracy. Democracy is what all of us believe we should do in a country for our governance system and economic system. So if we decide in Ghana that we'll go to the chieftaincy kind of system, the chieftaincy kind of system has its own democracy. How a king is elected, what not, what knows, who does what, and what knows what the subjects have to do. It's democracy. Once these things are codified, that's our democracy. So when we begin to talk of democracy and we think it's Western democracy, we are very wrong. So those who say democracy is not good fit for Africa are thinking of Westminster or American presidential kind of democracies. And I'm saying, can we bake our democracy within the confines of where we're coming from, our socio-historical, socio-cultural trajectory? Where are we coming from? What are the ingredients that we can put together so that we know that this is the way we want to be governed? This is the way we want our state to go. That is democracy. So let nobody say that democracy is not fit for Africa.
Okay.
Democracy, if you say Western democracy is not fit for Africa, I'll go with you. But democracy generally is a good thing. That's the best thing that ever happens.
Now, Ghana seems to be safe from all of these things. But are there any things that are common with Ghana and some of these countries that have experienced these military coups that we should be mindful of?
We should be mindful of those things that are inimical to democracy. One, state capture.
Okay.
When the state is in the hands of a few who are arrogant and they believe we are waiting for the next election, so we don't care. State capture is very, very, very important. Two, instability within and without. Instability in the form of jihadist attacks or internal feuds. Boku cases, Alavanyo, Nkonya, Dagbon. If you have plenty of such fires within your country, you've got to be very careful. And then the economic order. Are people really getting what they need within the confines of external and internal problems? Okay. If we have economic problems, are we all feeling the pinch the way we should feel it? Or some people are special kind of citizens? We need to watch that. Are there citizens' participation? Is the rule of law working? These are few ingredients within a dispensation. If you don't take care of them, there is always the possibility of not only a military coup, but a people's uprising, as been happening in Sudan.
Now, you mentioned that your biggest fear are the internal conflicts, the Boku, which you've mentioned a number of times, and the other scattered ones around the country. Now, what's the solution? We've had people like the Asantehene come through when the Dagbon issue. There are other ones. The Boku one is repetitive. How do we bring a solution to all of these things that are scattered?
We must remove politics from these conflicts. My own research shows that there is hardly any such conflict where politics is not the culprit, the number one culprit. It can be historical, it can be the media, it can be anything. But almost every conflict in this country has been politicized. If you go to Boku, the Kusasis belong by their own behavior and everything to NDC, and the Mamprusis belong to MPP. In Dagbon, it is Andani for NDC and Abudu for MPP. You go to Alavan, every of the conflict has been so much politicized. If we divorce, these are some of the props that prop up such conflicts. And it is more dangerous where politics is one of the culprits. So if we divorce politics from these conflicts, I tell you, we'll dodge them. And again, we must use track 2 diplomacy rather than the military and whatnot. And the military will go in and make sure that things die out within seconds. But we haven't solved the conflict. And I always believe in that the people within the area must themselves own the resolution. That's like when Asantehene went in. It's a track 2 kind of diplomacy. Okay. Asantehene has no constitutionally written mandate to stop conflicts. The constitutionally mandated institutions are the police and the military. All right? But they can't solve it. They couldn't solve it. So track 2 diplomacy is very, very important in almost every country. Prominent people who can go talk and you see that people say, okay. And as Anthony, the Dagbon case, he did it very well. And we can use him. We can use prominent persons who, when they talk, you know, the world shakes. If Kofi Annan were alive, you know, and he has been doing it around the world. Beho is a super diplomat who's Dibiana. He's even, when he's talking, you can see that the whole words that are coming and the whole persona of Beho is peace. The more we use such persons, the better it is for our country. Rather than every minute, Operation Gong Gong, let's go. We go and beat the people, make sure that the place is quiet a little, and then we leave. And then we haven't solved the problem.
Now, it's the media that's trumpeting a lot of these things.
That's right.
Where does the media stand in all of
The
this?
media is very unique in these issues. If the media reportage is inflammatory, then these fires will not ever die. If the media knows how to report on wars or conflicts.
And do you think it's something we are doing well?
I don't think the Ghanaian media is doing well. Because as soon as there is a conflict, the media either is expecting too much or they don't understand how things work. We have had instances where I've spoken to some of your leadership and I'm saying we need to have proper lessons for you. Of course, we have a course over here. We invite the media. The last course ended and a lot of the media houses that were present were very happy that they attended this course. It's called Conflict and Crisis Management. And the role of the media in conflict management is a whole course. Some of us went through this course. It's a whole course. Media report. Look, the First World War, the Second World War, Rwanda genocide, all came from the mistakes of the media.
Okay.
All came from because of the mistakes of the media. 4 girls were killed in Takoradi. The way the media handled this thing could have brought anything to Ghana. It was wrong. And I was on radio and television. I was a victim of vitriolic attack and whatnot. Because I know that what the media is doing is wrong. The Ejura crisis. I was a member of the committee. And as soon as the committee was appointed, 90% of the media in Ghana was saying that it was a rubber stamp to start with. We haven't even started our work. And that is going to be a rubber stamp. And then when we started our work, again, vitriolic attack on the committee itself. So what happened was that some members of the those who suffered in Nigeria decided not to appear before the committee. Is the media helping? You know, so we need also the media to be circumspect when they are doing a reportage in conflict situations. At times, the media even ignites the conflict, especially socioeconomic conflicts. You know, maybe there are no matches in Ghana. The way the media will report it and the nuances, especially your vernacular presentations, you know, outfits. It's like creating a hatred, this thing towards government straight away. That's how you set it up. And then when opposition holds it, Zimbabwe, when the media sets the line like that and opposition holds it as a weapon against government, there is chaos. And there is.
Doc, I have a yes or no answer for you. Will Africa be able to come out of this new...
Sure. Leadership,
okay,
involvement, participation. Do people listen to us? At times, you set us against those who just have had some insult. There is a media house I don't talk to. I don't. They call. They have come here to beg. I ask them to leave my office. They know themselves. If they see me on this thing, they will know what I'm talking about. I talk, and you give platform to somebody who is not, I mean, who cannot lace my shoes. To insult me to the hilt and say, after all, where did I train? Do you know where I trained? Say, I trained in Russia. And so what? I trained in Ghana, trained in Russia, trained in the US. All right? And partly in London, a year in London. I have several certificates, postgraduate certificates. And this idiot just rained insults on me just because his party has been. But I am a scholar. And I don't look left, I don't do right. I analyze things from the point of view of theory and what I know and from where I'm coming. I may be biased, but I don't hate. So the media, of course, yeah, we can get out if we have leadership in Africa who understand the African terrain, who understand what it takes to get out of the the quagmire.
Dr. Vladimir Antwi-Danso, thank you very much for speaking with us. And so this has been our conversation, the state of Ghana in all of these coups that are ravaging the West African region. My name is Etsey Atisu. I sat in for your regular host, Daniel Odru. Until another time, be safe.